the radical revolutionary influence behind Tim Walz's education policy. Please tell our audience about it.
Well, the man you're going to see is probably one of the most prominent authorities on something called ethnic studies. And you can think about ethnic studies as critical race theory. They're essentially the same. They both want to overthrow America. What makes this video so important is that it is the first time I know of when a prominent national advocate of critical race theory explicitly says out loud, the purpose of critical race theory is to destroy America. Now, this may look like a nobody. It may even look like a moron. And he may even be a moron. But he is prominent, and most significantly, he is Tim Walz's most important investment education advisor. At the center of Tim Walz's education program is this thing called ethnic studies, and Lozinski is its leader. As I say, it is revolutionary insofar as it seeks, as it obviously does, the overthrow of America. So here we have the vice presidential candidate relying on a man who wants to destroy America. Now, Walz would try to distance himself from Lozinski, but that's very difficult because he appointed Lozinski. He knows exactly what's in this ethnic studies. He promoted the legislation that authorized it. It is not unreasonable to say, it may be unbelievable, but it's not unreasonable to say that Walz wants to destroy America. Now, he would, of course, say he wants to improve it. But I would say in improving it, in quotes, he will, in effect, maybe he doesn't know it, overthrow America. And frankly, I think he does know it. Again, he wouldn't admit it, but he knows it. And to go one step further, this is the man that Harris chose as her vice president. Now, she had many other, or a number of other, more qualified candidates to be vice president. She chose this one because he was ideologically and policy compatible with her. Again, I would say that Harris wants to overthrow America. I would also say, of course, she doesn't think that's what she wants. And I'm sure she would say that all she wants to do is improve America. But her improving will necessarily involve overthrowing America. This is what makes this video so important. It ought to be the most important video of this election. So far it isn't, but it's my job and other people's job to make it so. That's why I came on this podcast, because Charlie has such reach and reaches very important people.
Well, Tom, that was a wonderful setup. We have the clip here, and I want everyone to listen carefully. I agree, Tom. This should be the most important clip of this election. And what were to happen if Tim Walz becomes vice president? Remember, Tim Walz was a public school teacher. Education is his thing. It wouldn't be unreasonable to say that if Kamala Harris wins, she would give some of the educational policy portfolio to Tim Walz and this individual. Let's play cut 130, please.
And we're also sometimes lying on ourselves when people say, like, oh, we use critical race theory in school. We don't use critical race theory in school. The first tenet of critical race theory is that the United States as constructed is irreversibly racist. So if the nation state as constructed is irreversibly racist, then it must be done with. It must be overthrown, right? And so we can't be like, oh, no, critical race theory is just about telling our stories and divert. It's not about that. It's about overthrow. It's insurgent. And we need to be, I think, more honest with that. And it's funny that they don't understand critical race theory, but they actually tell some truth when they're like, yeah, it is anti-state. You can't be a critical race theorist and be pro-US. Okay, it is an anti-state theory that says the United States needs to be deconstructed, period, right? Like that's, and so I think it's an interesting argument there, and that's why I'm a critical race theorist.
Whoa. I mean, Tom, that is chilling stuff. He is a PhD from University of Minnesota, and he was appointed for a role from Tim Walz. Tom, this would be one of the more revolutionary individuals ever to be involved in the U.S. government.
Yes, and I think it's important to reiterate, this guy is important. He's the foremost authority on this ethnic studies in Minnesota, and he is the de facto leader of Walz's ethnic study program. It ought to be chilling. Trump talks about the enemy within. He says it's far more dangerous than our external enemies. This is the face of the enemy within. So far, we don't really have a face. Harris, Pelosi, Biden, they are stooges, right? They are titular leaders, but behind them are the brains, and I hate to say it, but this seems to be one of the brains, who are hooking up this revolutionary theory that's going to destroy us, because in a revolution, the first thing you have to do is educate the citizens in your narrative. Their narrative is America is racist. So that's what they've got to educate us or our children. And Charlie, if I may read some standards that have been put out for first graders. You might not, I don't understand all these words. It says first graders must identify examples of ethnicity, equality, liberation, and systems of power, and use these examples to construct meanings for those terms. Now, these are fifth graders. I and your audience no doubt find this jargon impenetrable, which of course is its intention. But each one of these words or terms points in the destruction of the overthrow of the American way of life. This is obviously has corrupted Minnesota and is corrupting to various degrees of speed other states around the country. So this election is not about two people who have different policy ideas within the same regime. This election is about representatives of two different regimes. One, Harris's regime, and Luzinski's regime is based on group quotas. Trump's regime is based on merit. You can't have both. If you're admitting people to college, you can do it on merit or you can do it on group quotas, but you can't do both. It's one or the other. And if I were framing the election, one way to do it would be to say it's a choice between those who believe in group quotas and those who believe in merit.
Well, very, very quickly, Tom, and I know you addressed this on your website, tomklingenstein.com, and you said it briefly, but I want to reiterate it. Is he just an outlier? I mean, governors can make mistakes after all, right?
Absolutely. And so it's important, and I do, in my piece on my website, establish that he's a serious player nationally, and he's very prominent within the Walz administration. Obviously, they're going to try to distance themselves from him, but it's very difficult because Walz has his fingerprints all over this guy. By the way, Charlie, if I were Trump, if I had a word with Trump, which I'm trying to do, I'd tell him at his next rally play this 1 minute plus video, it would be chilling, and it would be a way for him to say, here is the enemy. Here's the face of the enemy.